Welcome, everyone, to episode 42 of the Games Talk Live podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. This is a special time. I usually go on at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but today it's 1 p.m. because I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. David Jaffe. Welcome, sir. Don't sound too happy there.
I'm very happy. I was just taking a shit. Listen to me. I had a colonoscopy this week. Did you know that?
Oh, I've had that done too. I'm a little older myself as well. So
I liked your intro because all these things were references to like 70s culture. It was like Three's Company and the special and all that stuff. And
oh yeah.
You know, I don't know what your demographics are like, but I always check my Google Analytics, and it's just like I'd say 90% of my audience is about 10 years younger than I am. And every now and then I'll get somebody in there that gets references like Evel Knievel or something. And they're like, oh, I know that one, you know. Yeah, but it's nice to have a fellow dinosaur.
Yeah, definitely. We're dinosaurs for sure. My demographics is 62 and up. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah, right. You're very big in the old folks home circuit. It's like, here he comes, here he comes.
That's what makes up my 14 viewers total.
Listen to me, because no one would know, you know, the fact that you're Fonzarelli, and I don't know if that's your real name or not, but man, when I was a kid, I had the jacket. And I would go around saying, hey, I mean, I thought, think about that people like we grew up thinking Henry Winkler
was cool.
And I'm just like, now he's kind of like, you know, your Jewish uncle. And it's like,
there you go.
Which isn't uncool, but you rarely associate like Larry David with cool, you know, and that's sort of what the Fonz is. So.
Exactly. You see him even back then, looking back, I'm like, what did we see in this? Like, okay.
Because he snapped his fingers and he was like, I Dream of Jeannie, but for dudes, right? He snapped his fingers and women came over.
Oh man. Yeah,
and he
that's
hit a
true.
jukebox and it played a song. And then he had an office and a bathroom, which was like, get in my office. And it's like, dude, somebody's taking a shit in there and you're having some kind of meeting about romance and how Richie and Potsy can get with the ladies. And it just must stink like high heaven. And that's I don't understand it. Anyway, that's been Games Talk Live. Thanks so much for
thanks for tuning in. Yeah. And you know, he was immortalized on a lunchbox I had as a kid too. So you know those old metal lunchboxes.
I love those so much. Yes.
Oh man, did they rust out pretty quickly?
Hey, look, Gaz is on your show. Look at that.
Gaz is a good friend. You know what, Gaz? You know, it's because of Gaz that you're on my show. You were on the show a couple of weeks back.
I was on the show last week, and it was awesome. And by the way, Gaz, I got your hat and I got your sweatshirt. Thank you very, very much. Okay, this is your show, not my show. But
he says he's naked for you, Jaffe. I don't know what you want to make of that, but he's naked.
As long as he sends a picture, then we can tweet it out. I think that'd be great.
And Brigadier's Blue sends every week. He does this on my show, and I really appreciate him. He says, "Finally get to catch." Oh, this time it's different. Usually he's like, "Here's a 5. I can't stay, but I'll watch it later." This time, he's watching in real time. He's looking forward to this week's show with you, Mr. Jaffe. Also, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers watching. Yes, happy Mother's Day. Welcome everybody. It's going to be really fun here because, David, when I was looking at the show, when I was creating this show anyway, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, all this stuff that I wanted to get done in this show, who I wanted to interview and stuff. I definitely wanted to do more of a one-on-one thing. And you were always at the top of my list when I was thinking about this because you are somebody who, you're very knowledgeable in the gaming scene, but you've got that controversial side of you. And I love the fact that you just say anything. Like you basically say what's on your mind. You're very, I won't say you say just anything. You're very conscious of what you say, but what you say sometimes does rub people the wrong way.
Oh, that's
true. At times you'll say things, and even though it does rub people the wrong way, you don't care. And I kind of like that attitude because if I really feel strongly about something, I also like to just say how I feel, and I really like that about you. So I was like,
well, I appreciate that, but I always offer the caveat is that, first off, there's a balance. You know, when I work for a company, when I was working for Sony or whatever, or even stuff I know today, like I know games that are in development and stuff that I'm not going to talk about. There are lines where I'm like, I'm not Animal from the Muppets. I'm not just going to like,
Yeah.
everything,
Oh, exactly.
But I respect the fact that there are lines when there are people I respect. But the other part of it is, I think, I've always been that way. I don't want to be any other way, but it's also important to add the caveat that I have the financial privilege of being able to be that way.
Yeah.
So, there is a safety net that comes with not having a boss, not working for a
For
company.
sure.
And I'm always grateful and aware of that, because I wouldn't want people to think, well, I want to say what I want to say, and but I can't. It's like, no, I get it. Everyone's not always in that position to be able to do that. So it does come with a caveat of privilege, which I want to acknowledge.
Yeah, for sure. But again, and that's why I said you're very conscious on what you're saying as well, because you don't just say things to just say it. You say things because you mean it and stuff. And I appreciate that. And I don't always agree with you. I'll say that off the bat. There's things I don't agree with you on. And you know what? I appreciate it, though, because, I can talk to people that may not agree with me, especially if somebody, civil discourse can go a long way. But there's a lot of, fanboys in this realm that just like to just spew nonsense and just argue with you, yell at you, call you names, that sort of thing. I don't tolerate that sort of stuff anymore. I used to try to, argue back with them back in the day, but I don't have time for that anymore. Just too old for this shit,
I'm slowly getting to that point. Like I don't mind a good debate, a good healthy. I love that stuff, but I've gotten my radar's gotten a little bit better in learning to identify when someone is just sort of trolling and looking to get a rise, and when someone simply disagrees and we want to have a discussion. And so I imagine the amount of time that I gave to trolls, either with my Twitter account or on my show or whatever. I imagine if I could kind of see a spreadsheet showing the amount of engagement and what time cost was, I would probably be like, oh my fucking God, Jaffe, you moron. But I think it's like a fire hose, and everybody is having to learn how to take in the vast amount of unfiltered information, and how do we, and it's a different answer for everyone. How do you take that data and make it work in a positive way for your life? And that's, for me, it's been a journey that I'm only now getting to where you're at, where you're like, yeah, that's not worth. That's I don't need that today. There's no value in it for me.
Yeah. As I told you before the show, I used to do social commentary and political talk and stuff back on an old channel of mine, and toxicity was just insane with that type of, content. So, I didn't really expect that much out of the gaming scene, but man, is it prevalent here as well. I want to get this super chat here. Thank you very much, Boba Fett Gaming, good friend of mine, with the $50 super chat. Says, gaming royalty in the house, Fonz and Jaffe like peanut butter and jelly. Thank you very much, Boba Fett. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. Really love this community.
Sorry about your dad, Boba Fett.
Sorry about your dad. Yeah, that's a good one. I wanted to get you here because I wanted to ask you some questions here on you, basically, and some of the games you've created in the past. Of course, the creator of God of War, one of the best freaking games ever. I love the series that you've created. But one thing I did want to ask you, though, is with God of War 2018 and the changes they made and sort of the direction they went with the game at Sony Santa Monica, was there anything at all that you felt kind of like, did you have any conflicting feelings at all with the direction they took?
It's interesting you asked that now. I was like, I'm maybe I'll just link people to this part of your video, because I was inches away from making a video about this, because the answer to that up until about 2 days ago was no. I felt, I loved God of War 2018. I remain convinced that even though I wouldn't have done it both creatively, it would have never occurred to me to do it. And also, I think Corey's a better writer than I am easily. But I thought his idea of sort of evolving Kratos and all that was really clever and really interesting. And, it caught the player base almost exactly on target of where they were. A lot of people who were like 10, 11, 12, 15, which they shouldn't have been because it was an M-rated title, playing God of War 1 back in 2005, and now they were adults, and being able to sort of connect with them about almost kind of a sense of, whether it's pride in growing up or shame of the stuff I used to like. There was something very clever about that magic trick that he pulled off. So that has been and remains the way I feel about God of War 2018. But I will tell you, I was on Twitter 2 days ago, and I'd like to say God of War was trending, but these days I don't trending used to be we all shared the same trending list. And now when you look at what's trending, it could just be 4 days ago I did a Google search on Amazing Spider-Man issue 91 because I wanted to see who did the cover art, and suddenly I've got, John Romita Sr. trending. And I'm like, I guarantee you John Romita Sr. is not trending on 95% of people's Twitters right now. But anyway, God of War was trending. I clicked. I wanted to see what was going on. And it was just a buffet of stories about God of War. And one of the things was Kratos from God of War 3, which I really had nothing to do with. It was a Stig's game. But the shot, it was 3 screenshots from the game, and it was in Spanish, the text, so I don't know what the guy was talking about. But it was the part in God of War 3 where he takes the concubine or the slave girl or whatever, but she's all chained up, and he takes her and raises her hands on this wheel. So she's holding this wheel crank that keeps a gate open. And she's like, it's too heavy. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. I need you to hold this because I got to go around the corner and go through the gate and continue my mission. Yeah. And after he does that, you hear the wheel slam down, and clearly she's been crushed and killed and whatever. Yeah. And so you've got this really sort of Saw-like scenario happening. She's also totally naked from the waist up. So she's got these big boobs, and there's this one shot they screenshotted, with her hands above her head. So you see the wheel and you see the torture device, but you also have these big boobs staring you in the face. And it's like the sex and the violence and all one perfect shot, And I remember at that moment, it was the first time I had a sense of those fuckers. And I don't mean Corey and I don't mean Sony Santa Monica, but in terms of, I'd been away from Kratos for so long, not for any emotional reason. I just do other things now. He's not in my day-to-day life. I'm grateful for him, of course. But to have that image or those 3 images as a sort of a reminder of like, that's your Kratos, that's your guy, And if I were to remake God of War today, I would remake it in the exact same way. I wouldn't have a trophy called Bros Before Hoes because I think that is sexist. I don't think the scenario was sexist. He's an equal opportunity torturer. He did it to a guy in God of War 2005. But I would make the game sexual. I would make the game violent. And I think what pissed me off was this. And I'm sorry this is a long answer.
But that's fine. Go ahead.
Like I said, I was going to make a video. Now you're like, I'm just going to trauma dump all over you. But what pissed me off was the realization that I still loved that character and I still love that version of that character, and sort of the dogpiling on that character when this new guy with the beard shows up, like, especially amongst journalists and stuff. It's like, we're mature now. And I think I took offense because maybe when you're 10 or 11 and you respond to that sort of violence and sex, you're like, yeah, I'm cool. And then you grow out of it and you feel, oh, now I'm mature. And that was something a lot of these journalists were on that journey in terms of generationally.
Oh, yeah.
And so to them, they were looking at this like throwing away that part of yourself is good, shaming it, no longer acknowledging it. But I created that when I was in my early 30s. Right? When, I wasn't 10. I was just and remain very connected to that part of me. I love the 14-year-old part of me. I love the 10-year-old part of me. It's still very much, in my creative life, and I'm grateful for it. And so when I saw Kratos again in one of those scenarios that I hadn't thought about in a long time, I did get I was like, fuck you guys. It's like,
Mm.
I get maybe that Kratos, as I created him, needs to evolve, but you guys basically took what he was, what made him who he was, and basically made an apology about that. And on one hand, I applaud that. Like I said, as a game, as a product, I thought it was a brilliant take. I thought Corey not only executed it with the team brilliantly, but it was a wonderful idea to begin with. But there is a part of me for the first time that was like, he didn't need a makeover. Fuck you. I was 30 when I came up with this. If you're so fucking dead inside that you can't enjoy grindhouse video games, and you can't enjoy overt sexuality, and you can't enjoy a little crazy horror movie like gore, then fuck off. You don't deserve to play with Kratos. So I did have that feeling for the first time.
Yeah, I definitely, I can feel what you're saying, because there is a huge, and that's why I asked the question, because there's a big change in direction for the character himself. We no longer see that kind of, well, I'll say kind of like a bloodthirsty Kratos. He's got his son now, and I don't know, the way they played it, it was, they tailored this to be more along the lines of, many other Sony games. Let's face it, you got a lot of people call it the sad dad syndrome, and a lot of their games follow that kind of template where, you've got a father figure with an escort with you, a little son or a daughter, and you're in these games playing it this way. And Kratos, traditionally, you would never think that Kratos would be that way from the original games, going from even the third to this 2018 game. And mind you, I loved it. I loved the 2018 game, but it is not the same Kratos.
No, and again, there is a very big part of that, both commercially and artistically. Yeah. I think that is brilliant. I mean, I don't. It's not lost on me how clever that turn was, but it is lost on me how, but it's also not lost on me how not disrespectful to me and not disrespectful to the character, but disrespectful and, more importantly, asleep at the wheel a lot of these adults are, that act as if, now that I'm mature, whatever that means, I need to put away things that are reflective of our more base and animalistic side. It's like, that's not gone anywhere. In fact, you're going to be a miserable adult if you don't acknowledge that and allow that to play from time to time and shove that down and act like I'm a grown-up. Fuck off, you moron.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that in the gaming industry. Not even just the gaming industry, but also movies, television. It's that sort of mentality. It seems like it is going that direction of, well, I think we've grown out of this. That's kind of the way a lot of people want to take it.
You've grown out of boobs. You've grown out of sex. You've grown out of...
it's all ridiculous. Yeah. It's ridiculous because we haven't. No, it's we just... shouldn't. So I totally get what you're saying. Mr. Joanna Dark, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, hello, Fonz, and to the excellent David Jaffe. Suppose you had an opportunity to make another Twisted Metal. What would you change about the game, and what new mechanics and ideas would you implement?
Okay, well, first off, I'm sorry that your game is going so poorly, Mr. Joanna Dark. But so
that's another topic.
Yeah. But it's not going poorly. That's what they planned from the beginning. Fine. Yeah. But anyway, okay, assuming I was still making games, I'm very happy not making games right now. But if I was still making games and that came across my table with the team of like, let's do this, it's really difficult. If it were up to me entirely, like I've said many times, I think the intellectual property of Twisted Metal, specifically Twisted Metal Black, is very rich. And whether you're talking about a movie or a story-based narrative game or a graphic novel, there's a lot of ground to cover and a lot of cool stories to tell. I think the kind of game... a lot of people think you can just basically Rocket League it, and it's like make Twisted Metal as an esport and charge for cars and make it free and blah, blah, blah. The problem is, and I've talked about this a number of times, so I don't want to bore you, but what's really important to think about is the mechanics of Twisted Metal. It's like it is in its heart a shooter / arena shooter, fighting game, whatever. And there are so many other games that scratch that itch where you have so much more fidelity of motion and control over your character that after the fantasy wears off, if I'm driving a car, I'm shooting missiles, I'm blowing up buildings, and that lasts for about 30 minutes or 40 minutes, it's like, oh my God, seeing this next gen, it's so cool. And then you're left with the mechanics to entertain you or not. And when you can play a game like Overwatch, where you can, at the basic end, where you can strafe and crouch and climb and swing, and then depending on the character you've picked, there's all these other things that you can only do as a biped. You're left with driving these vehicles that are really limited in how they move. And so it's always been a challenge to figure out how do you really enhance the moment-to-moment gameplay after the novelty of it wears off. So I would probably focus more on the world building and the story. I would probably try to do something like a semi-open world where, yes, you have car combat, but you're also getting out of the car and you're learning about the characters and you're having character-based adventures and building the world. Straight up car combat, I don't know if that's really has a home anymore.
Yeah, I thank Joanna Dark for asking that question. This is actually a question I was going to ask you. I was going to bring up Twisted Metal. That's why I had the footage up there of Twisted Metal Black. Because nowadays, we don't see games like this with vehicle combat. It's I don't know if it would translate the same as it did back in the day when we played those games. I loved Twisted Metal in that franchise back in the day, but I don't really see today's casual market really gravitating to just vehicle combat games. They're into the Fortnites, the CODs, or even the Sony template games.
Well, what's funny is now, when you look at a new, whatever they call them, expansion or a new piece of the Grand Theft Auto Online universe that comes out, car combat is no longer a genre. It's just something you can do in the course of a shooter. Yeah. So in Grand Theft Auto, I can get in a helicopter and fly around. I can get in a tanker truck and drive around and ram cars, or I can just be walking around with a sniper rifle.
Mad Max was another one. There was vehicle combat.
Exactly. So I think
Rage
if
2.
You're going to just go pure vehicle combat, you've got to find a way to take that nugget of moment-to-moment gameplay and really go, how do we enrich this and make this special? And I always say, to answer his question, I don't know how you would do it. There's been a rumor for a while they're making a new Twisted Metal. If I believed in God, I would say God go with him and mean it. But I mean, or go with God. I don't know what to do if that was the charge. I would do it if I wanted to make games and I was getting paid, but I would not have a smart idea.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Gaz with a super chat says, Jaffe, have you seen Doom from Dune? If so, what do you think about it?
Well, what's funny about Gaz is he doesn't speak the English so well. I think what he's asking is,
have you seen Dune?
Seen the motion picture Dune
2020?
I love Dune. I've read the book. I've read the first 2 books. I think they're just brilliant books. I saw the David Lynch movie back when I was in junior high, and I keep meaning to rewatch it because I was probably a little young to get some of the nuance of what he was doing. But the new movie, it's hard to say if it's a good or a bad. And that's not a bad movie, but it's. I come preloaded, ready to love it because I love the world, I love the story, I know the story, I know the characters, and so to see that movie where they really took their time and it was almost like Dune porn, where they just really sat there with the shots and let you see what Baron Harkonnen looks like when he comes out of the bath and all this. It's just so. It's so. Just indulgent, which I love that. But I don't know if some 15-year-old kid walks in and gets a ticket to Dune and says, "Oh, Zendaya's in this and it's sci-fi cool." I don't know what their response would be. Is it a compelling movie if you're not already a fan? Who knows? But I adored it. I loved it.
There you go, Gaz. I'm not going to let you hijack my show with any more movie questions. All right,
It's Talk Like It's total British for the rest of the show, mate.
Risk it for the biscuit. Thank you for the super chat. He
You
got up at...
you don't get off that easy. You're like laughing, like, let's move on. No, it's total British, the whole show.
Oh, I can't do it. I can't do the British accent.
That's what's fun about it. Anyway, all right, here we go.
Okay, mate. Nah, I don't know. Risk it for the biscuit. He got up at 4 a.m. today just to see you here on my show today. He's in Australia. So he says, where did the inspiration for Twisted Metal come from? Great show, Fonz. I made it. Hit the like button. Much love to the chat.
It's a story told often, so I don't want to bore anyone. You can find it online in many places. But the high concept was we knew we were doing 3D games at Sony. We were doing something for PlayStation before it was even called PlayStation. And we went out to meet with Evans and Sutherland, who had left. I want to say a bunch of those guys left Evans and Sutherland to do Pixar. Like Ed Catmull was there and all that stuff. But we met with the group from ENS that did military simulations like fighter jets and all this shit. And they had experience with 3D, and very few people in the industry did. And so we made a deal with them to do a couple of games, and so I got to go out there and experience 3D. It wasn't gaming, but I was flying around in Tomcat simulators, and they had a hang glider VR simulator. And my mind was blown, because up until that point, I was used to just simply 2D run and jump, games. That's what it was in the 16-bit and all the way going back era. And so I was totally high on that experience. And I was with Alan Becker, who ran Santa Monica. I was with Mike Guillaume, who went on to direct Warhawk and Jet Moto. Okay. And we were in 405 traffic and leaving the airport, coming back from Utah, which is where Evans and Sutherland was. And I think one of us was just like, oh my God, as everybody does when you're in LA traffic, it's just, you're on the 405, it's packed. Like, my God, I wish I could fucking just have a rocket launcher and blow these fucking cars out of the way. And in that, we were like, oh my God, that's one of the games we should fucking do. It's like Doom meets Mario Kart battle mode with Mortal Kombat style mentality. That's the game.
That's awesome. There's one more thing I want to ask you about, another game of yours, Drawn to Death. Now, Drawn to Death, it was a game you invested a lot of time into, wanted it to really take off. I've heard you talk about this game in the past, but what is it, do you think, that didn't really take off with the people out there, the gamers? What didn't hit right here with this game, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's a lot of things, right? I think it was intentionally unattractive, and in that I thought it was beautiful. I'm not being hyperbolic. Like I said, I'm very connected with that sort of inner middle school kid that I was. And I loved, so to me, both sort of the rawness of the art and the rawness of the thematic was incredibly appealing. But to really be serious about that rawness and try to capture it honestly, we ended up making a game that a lot of people thought was really an eyesore. And again, some of the team that we had in terms of the art team, their pedigree is not something you could sneeze at. These are amazing artists. They had to work really hard to create.
Oh, I thought it was cool looking, honestly.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool.
Part of it was the look, though. Part of it was the fact that, the game didn't do a good enough job, and maybe I didn't do a good enough job, or maybe I did, but the audience just didn't want it, where I was really trying to make as much of a fighter as a shooter. And a lot of people came to it, and because it looks like a shooter, there was this sense of it doesn't play exactly like that. So why am I having to unload like 3 clips of a machine gun to kill someone? Yeah. And it's like, in my mind, that the machine gun was abstract. Right? It wasn't really a machine gun. It was like, it was a bunch of little punches in a fighting game. But if you wanted to get really good and skilled with some of the other abilities and weapons, that was like sort of like a fireball or a whatever in Street Fighter. So the presentation kind of ran up against the abstraction of what the game was. That confused people. So we saw a lot of people play one match and wash out because their response was, these weapons are weak as fuck. And so that was a design mistake, and it was all my fault, right? And then there was also just, I think the critics sort of had the opposite problem of God of War 2018 in that it wasn't very good. No,
Yeah.
but in that it's thematic, even though underneath it really is the sweetest, kindest narrative I've ever worked on. But the surface is this guy who's, he's 15. His brother was at the time was overseas in the army. They hadn't heard from him. He had a stepdad who was just a piece of shit. And all of that is marbled into the game. All the characters, like Wizard of Oz, are based on things in his life, and all the storytelling happens by reading notes in the sky and little things that you can pick up on, like the 100th time you've played. You're like, oh my God, look at that in the background. Now I understand. It was really deep, but the surface was very vulgar, very sexual, very 15.
Mm-hmm.
And critics that was a bridge too far for a lot of them, because it's like, well, we're not that anymore. We're a mature art form. This is terrible. This is gross. So that hit us hard. And I was really bothered because I expected, and I don't know why, but lesson learned, but I expected, I guess, critics not to be my friend, but I expected them to spend a little more time with it before they cast judgment, just because I was hoping they would advocate when they're like, hey, I know this looks like this and nothing's wrong with this, but this is actually a really sweet story, but you got to get past the angst, which is like what it's like to be a teen, right? And then on top of it, I think the movement and the shooting, it was good when you got used to it, but I had never made a shooter. The team was brand new. That in and of itself is like, it's the equivalent, I guess, of like, you want to go ice skate in the Olympics and you've skated at the mall a couple of times and you're like, you don't realize until you try it just how specialized skill making an online shooter is. It's so many things go into it, and we were learning as we were building it. And so I think it played until you got used to it. It was kind of clunky.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. Now, you're someone who isn't really, we've talked about it earlier. You say what's on your mind. Is there anything that you may have said or done within this industry that you may regret? And if there was, would you change it? What would you do to change that?
I wouldn't. Regret's kind of regret's
extreme.
Kind of the wrong word. Well, because it kind of ties into sort of a cultural norm that I think is dangerous, which is that's how we learn, is by making mistakes. And I think at least in our culture, there's this idea of a mistake is bad, and it's like, so, that little philosophical discussion aside, I would say that the two things that come to mind that I don't regret, but I learned the most from, one was when I did an interview for Twisted Metal 2012. Excuse me, and it was coming out on Valentine's Day, and I said to whoever I was on camera with at the time, hey, if you buy this game, it's a great Valentine's Day gift, and if you let your girlfriend win, she'll give you a blowjob, right? And
Wow.
and so Kotaku wrote an article on it, and they called me sexist and misogynistic. And I got really upset about that. And I even had a conversation. I think her name was Kate Cox, funnily enough. And I had a conversation with her offline, and so I still to this day, and I got into it with Totillo because I'm like, there's nothing misogynistic about that comment at all. And it really pissed me off that they wouldn't retract it and wouldn't change it. And I'm like, you don't know what misogyny is. That's, but I did say, but you know what? Your author is right. It was a sexist comment. And I told her, and I told Totillo, and I was public about it. I said, I appreciate you educating me on that. because I was like, yeah, I don't think, other than maybe one woman, I had ever met a woman who played Twisted Metal, and I was very much into the fandom of that game at the time. But even if there were no women, the phrase did sort of put out in the ether the idea of a girl can't play this game. It's not for girls, and a guy has to let her win to win. And I was like, okay, no, I get that. That was sexist, and I apologize. Right? That was one. The other one was I was doing an interview with Jeff Keighley, and he asked me a question. This was on one of his bonus rounds or on game trailers. He asked me a question of something like, if I could be anyone else in the industry, who would I be? And I said I would be, and thank God he blipped the name, but it's very clear who I was talking about. But I regretted it almost right when I said it. I said I would be blank blank, and this person is a woman. And I was just riffing on a line from Steve Martin's LA Story. I wasn't being serious. I just thought it would be a funny bit. I said I would be blank blank. That way I would stay at home and play with my breast all day. And it was a different time, and it was funny, and it got the laugh I was going for. But right when I said it, I was just like, I don't know that person, and that could be very disrespectful to her, and that wasn't my intention. And so I don't regret that, but I do go, oh, Jaffe, sometimes you might want to think a little bit. But on the whole, though, I would say I'm pretty happy with my ability to filter what I need to filter, which ain't much. So yeah, you step in it sometimes, but I'd rather do that than be one of these people that goes through life buttoned up and unable to share and connect with people. Because I think that's honest. At least it is for me. That's honest for me, and I don't think any other way.
Well, one more question for you before we get started on something here. Gaming. Now, you said you're pretty content with, doing what you do now. You don't have to rush out there and make any kind of game or anything.
Not content.
Not content.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Okay. You love doing what you do now. Is there any type of game that would ever suck you back in? Or have you ever had any thoughts of making another game? Like anything out there, any genre that really
Sure, yeah. When I shut down Bartlett Jones, my first thought was, okay, well, I've always wanted to be a writer, novelist, script writer, whatever. So fuck you, Delta Gamer. Delta Gamer's in your chat. He's a crazy motherfucker. So I spent a couple of months playing around with that. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do this. This isn't fun. It's not as fun as I thought it would be. Yeah. And so I called my agent and I said, hey, I think I want to get back into games, but I want to do some narrative stuff. I want to do this walking simulator. So I was streaming at the time as well. It was a show I did called the Jaffe Stream, which wasn't really game related. It was more crazy, weird stories that I just thought were, UFOs.
Which you do mix in with your gaming streams.
There was a story. It's so hard not to just do that show sometimes. There was a story the other day about literally a man and a woman have now been accused of murder in the UK. They had their daughter, who I think died when she was 26. They claim she had horrible agoraphobia. And so she chained herself to the couch. Oh, wow. And she had not left the couch in about 5-6 years. And she died. And when they finally found her body, the parents just left her corpse on the couch for 6 years, 5 years, whatever.
Insane.
She had dissolved into the cushions, into the couch. And it was just like a fucking horror movie.
Welcome to Games Talk Live, everybody.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that there are such, but I just couldn't really make a go of it. But I was doing that.
Yeah.
And I was also working on this game about you played the president of the United States. It was just really good, by the way. It's really, I got to tell it to you. Can I tell it to you real quick?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So it opens, you jump characters, and it opens with you playing this guy who goes into this very posh hotel on New Year's Eve. And you go up to your suite, and you start getting things delivered to you in your room, like room service comes, but when you lift up the food dome, there's like parts of a gun underneath it, and so you assemble your gun, you cut a hole in the window, and you basically shoot this homeless guy. But then you have this device, and what you've shot into his neck is a little remote control thing, and your next part of the gameplay is moving this remote control thing up into his brain, and it attaches to his brain. And then we leave that behind for a long time, and you take on the role of the newly inaugurated President of the United States. And you basically go into the White House, and you start to discover all of this stuff that, like, if you were president, you'd want to ask about Area 51 and aliens and all the secrets that are all in this part underneath the White House that he goes in. And
sounds cool.
Well, yeah, and there's this whole adventure, and what ends up happening is at the end, we realize that the president that we know isn't the president. It's the same guy who's been the president for like the last 150 years. And they're basically taking the consciousness of the president and just putting it out in the world. And so the homeless guy that we shot ultimately is the vessel for the actual elected president's consciousness. And the new visage of the president, or the new body of the president, just has the old man uploaded into him at the end, and he just continues and continues and continues. So it's this sort of thriller, but it also deals with, parts where you could play with things of technology that we discovered that are,
I hate to say it, but this sounds like it mimics real life to some people out there. I'm sure it does. Some people out there may say, this is what's going on, the president's not real.
That's exactly right. But I wanted to make that, and I was really into it. And then it just I started running into some narrative walls and gameplay walls. And I was just like, it's so hard. It's so hard to write and design, and you get excited, and then you go to someone and you pitch them, and they like it, but they're confused about this, and you got to change this, and it's just. My point of it was that hit right after Drawn to Death failed, and I think there was just a sense that came over me, especially when I was streaming, and I'm like, well, I like this a lot. And that's hard. And I'm no longer really plugged into the zeitgeist like I was commercially. Yeah. And there was just this moment of clarity of like, you could keep doing it, but you've done it, you've experienced it, you've benefited from it. And more importantly, if you did everything right and worked your ass off again, and you had a Game of the Year contender, and you sold a lot of copies, and you would basically be doing the thing you've already done. And I don't even know if I could do that, but I've already had that experience. And I was like, or I could focus all my energy on the stream, which I love. And it probably will never be near as big as my game career, but oh, well, it's a lot of fun. So, I mean, the last, I'm sure I'll look back at this last 5-year period of my life, or 4 years, whenever we shut the company down, and just go, on one hand, I think I look at myself and I say, most 51-year-olds, which is how old I am, they seem to be more, I don't know, they seem more pulled together than I feel. But I look at this period of my life and I say, there has been so much growth and change and maturing of who I am to myself that I think I'll look back with great nostalgia and fondness at this period, because there's a lot happening and a lot of awarenesses that it's taken me a long time to come to.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fun and games, there's something I want to play with you here today, and it's something that I like to call 5 questions. 5 questions.
What I really like, though, is the story that I just told.
Oh.
Emotional and evocative and all this, and it's like, oh, cool. All right, let's play 5 questions.
Let's play 5 questions. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so this is going to be 4 trivia questions, 1 subjective question at the end. Now, there is this new rule I put into play where whoever's playing this game can actually ask the audience for help for 1 question only.
I competing against you, or are you the host?
I am the host. I'm sitting here in the suit, sir. And yes, we're going to play this.
That looks like one of those finger cuff things. That you know,
yeah, I know. It's really bad. It's loud. It's obnoxious. It's 70s. It's 80s. It's everything I am. Okay, David. All right, let's play this game. All right. So I got to get the mood music going. First question. Who is the first god that Kratos receives power from?
That's a good question. Poseidon.
Correct, sir. It's Poseidon. All right, next question. All right, this one, let me turn the music off for this one because this is auditory here. Released in the arcades by Namco back in 1980. Can you tell me the name of this game based on its original theme?
Oh, come on. Really?
What is it?
It's Pac-Man.
Of course, sir. Made it too easy for you.
That's too easy.
All right. Music back for this one. In The Last of Us, what animal seems to pop up all over the place, from Sarah's room to the animal itself, along with even the theater in the game, named after this animal? What animal is it?
The animal of... never mind.
What kind of animal?
It's a giraffe.
Correct. And do you know what that animal is supposed to symbolize in the game? That's just a extra little bonus.
According to who? Neil Druckmann?
According to Neil Druckmann.
Growth?
Yes.
I don't know.
It's supposed to symbolize innocence, apparently.
Okay.
So, all right. Here's one. Based on this screenshot, can you tell me what popular game this is that released in 2013?
Grand Theft Auto 5, but that looks like the updated one.
Yes, but that is Grand Theft Auto 5. Correct. You, sir, got all those 4 questions right. Here's your 5th and final question. Favorite gaming experience of all time? Do you have a favorite gaming experience?
The problem with, I mean, I know this is a funny show, but the problem with that is that you have to, there's nuanced answers, right? There is the nostalgia answer,
yes,
which is me sitting with my brother and his friend Stephen Marks up until 3-4 in the morning playing Adventure on Atari 2600. But that's not necessarily, there's no way to answer that question. The only answer is you can't answer it.
Only Jaffe can say something like this to this question.
Because I take this shit seriously in the sense that it's games have such a powerful impact on people when they're engaged with them. Right now, I think one of my favorite games of all time is Elden Ring. And
oh, really? Elden Ring's one of the biggest,
and it's like being lost in that world. And at the end of the day, everyone's asleep. I'm up. It's 1:00 in the morning, and I just go into the game, and that's an experience that on my deathbed or whatever, I will be like, that's one of my favorite experiences. But I don't think you can say favorite.
That's awesome, though. I'm glad that you really liked Elden Ring. It's a game I really liked as well.
Wonderful.
Did you beat it yet or not?
Oh, no. And it's really funny because I stream it sometimes and people get really, I don't think get upset. Some people do, but they're just like, I can't believe you've been playing it for 130 hours and you're not here yet. And you got to do this, you got to do that. And I'm like, for example, I'm at a point now where I'm semi kind of getting to enemies again that are kind of hard. And I'd over leveled. And instead of like, okay, let me go get, the shackle from Patches, I just want to go explore for a while, and I want to go level up, and I want to go find some cool shit, and then I'll figure out what to do next. And it's like I just love being in that space
me too.
so much that I think I'm probably I just opened the area where it's snowing. The snow.
Okay, yeah. That's end game. That's end game.
Okay.
Yeah. You're
but
there.
But I've left it. I'm like I don't want to do that right now. I want to go back and explore some of the caves that I couldn't beat earlier and all that. Exactly.
Shit. I did the same thing. I'd get to the next part and say, I can't do this right now. Let me go beat up some stuff that I know I can beat up,
Yeah, it's a wonderful game at a design level because
it really is.
give you so many ways to play it that it really feels like you're living it, because it's like, I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it's incredibly important to design.
It really is a greatly designed game. And I think it did take me 7 hours and 40 something minutes to beat that game. It was just insanely long.
I just want to be clear, 7 hours?
I mean, 7 days and 44 minutes. Sorry.
Okay.
7 days time. 7 days time. That, oof, man, it took forever. I've got a Gamer's Watch here, Super Chat. Thank you very much. He says, Jaffe, awesome to see you with Fonz. He's one of the best guys out there. No, I'm not, but thank you. He says, if God of War has changed so drastically, is this a good time for EA to make a new Dante's Inferno game? Dante's Inferno.
Interesting. So I only came to Dante's Inferno about 2 months ago. I knew what it was, of course, but I never played it. And it's on Game Pass and on EA Play. And I was like, I'm looking for something simple. And I didn't know really what it was. And so I haven't finished it, but I'm a little over halfway through, I understand. And it's great. I love it. And it's nice. I had the same feeling when I played the Samurai Jack game last year, which was relatively simple, but it's nice to have those games that are still, they're not so big and they're not so open world and they're not so commitment heavy that you're just like, I want to go on an adventure for a couple of days. And it's not so linear that it feels like you're on a rail shooter, but you can explore and double back and all this stuff. But there's a momentum that's moving you forward, and you're always seeing new stuff and having new experiences. And so I loved it. So to his question, I'm assuming what his question is because a lot of people look at Dante's Inferno as an almost carbon copy of God of War 1, 2, 3. And so I wonder if he's asking, is it time to remake Dante's Inferno and do it like they did God of War 2018, or is he asking, is it time to bring back that kind of game? So I think it's always time to make any game that a team and a group of people on the team that are the vision holders are passionate about. So I think both of those games could work today, but you've got to have somebody who really sees a strong, exciting vision.
Yeah, Elk Dude here with the super chat says that British accent was that attempt anyway was worth $5.
Goddamn right it was. Let me tell you something.
Yeah, all right, mate.
Every time I touch my vagina, it makes me feel like an ice cream bar.
Okay, crazy. Xbox Live had issues this weekend. Of course, it was down for a lot of people, and people couldn't even access their online games and offline games. Jaffe, I don't know if you heard about this or if you were affected, but it's kind of odd that people are getting up in arms about this now again, and some people sweeping it under the rug, of course. But this was the issue a lot of people were having back in the day, last generation, when we were talking, when the Xbox One was announced and everybody was up in arms about DRM and always-on connectivity and stuff. And this is what I wanted to talk to you and focus on today, was basically digital future of gaming.
Okay.
What is your thoughts on all this?
I was affected, by the way. I was doing a stream yesterday with like 7 brand new games, and 2 of them were Loot River, which just dropped on Game Pass, which is delightfully cool, and Trek to Yomi, I think it is.
Yep.
And I couldn't get those working at first and everyone's like, oh, it's not on you. It's something happening with Xbox. So I went and played a bunch of Steam stuff. And then by the time I came back, it was working like 2 hours later. So, so I was affected. But, and immediately you had the peanut gallery, like, see, this is the problem. This is the problem.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? The problem is I've had Game Pass for 4 years now. And this is the first time it hasn't worked for a couple of hours. Oh, my stars and garters, and I said to them, it's like, oh, well, you have electricity. Does that go out sometimes when there's a brownout or when there's a power outage? You have a car, does it break down sometimes? I mean, shut the fuck up and learn to argue well. It's okay if you don't like digital. It's okay if you don't like Game Pass. You have my support. It's a free world. It's free thought. But at least come honest with your criticisms. And again, if you're a guy who has an internet that's always out, okay, you get a pass because that happens for some people. But most people in America in 2022 have internet that is pretty reliable. And so the idea that, oh, see, this is what we're warning you about, what? A service that goes down for a few hours every 4 years? Yeah, that's really fucking bad.
It always comes back to the argument of physical versus digital. People will bring that up a lot and say, this is why I'm forever physical. You know, that whole stupid hashtag forever physical that was out there. I don't know about you, but I used to be a guy that liked to own my games physically. And then it came to a point where I found out about game sharing. And I was like, wait a minute, I only have to buy one copy for me and my son, and we can share this? And it's legal and $60 and here you go. We both get to enjoy a game on our own consoles. Great, sign me up. So I've become all digital.
I don't even know what game sharing is. I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, I don't.
Really? Really? Oh, well,
you're saying you can buy a game
and you can share it, like you could share it with it. Yeah, you could share it with a friend.
That's not new. I mean, that's been going on.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Many
Are
years.
you saying you give your son the physical copy?
No. You can buy a game digitally and share that game with a friend over console.
PlayStation?
On PlayStation, on Xbox, you can do this.
You shitting? I don't think that's true.
Yes, it is true.
Okay, so if I bought Cyberpunk 2077 and I said, you know what, you take it for a while, I won't be able to play it, of course, but you can play it?
Yes. So basically what you would do.
I have never heard of such nonsense. I think that's amazing.
So let's say you and I were game sharing. You would make your console my home console, and I would make my console your home console. So that way, if I buy a game digitally or you buy a game digitally, we would both get it. That's the way it works on both consoles. So
I never thought about that. But anyway, that's great.
So when I found out about that, I pretty much became all digital. I was like, you know what? I'm saving money. Here you go. I'm all about value as a consumer. That's just the way I look at it. That's why I love Game Pass so much.
I have never been one of these collectors. I mean, there was I remember the only time it really ever scratched an itch for me was I took computer classes in the early 80s in Alabama. And I remember going down into the basement where they had like 30 Commodores and Apple IIes and all this stuff that we learned on. And when you come down into the basement, they had a shelf, and on the shelf were like 20 or 30 PC game boxes. And it was like Wizardry and that beautiful foil stamp cover and Ultima and all that. And it was like, oh, this is so cool. It's like having a library of interactive worlds I can explore. Like there was a romance about it. But after that, though, I don't have that bug that I need to collect things and own things, and I have genuine ADD. I'm on medicine for it. I've been diagnosed like 5-6 years ago. So honestly, for me, the fewer things I have to dust and keep track of and organize. So I sold not all, but I sold the vast majority of my games recently. I just had tons of them in the garage. And it was really cool because this guy from a mom and pop game store came out, and he just started going through them, and there were some in there. He's like, "I'll give you $400 for Klonoa. I'll give you like $600 for some Xenogears game I had." I'm like, sure, fuck it. I haven't opened it in 10 years. You can have it, So, but yeah, I'm all about the digital for sure.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. The people out there that are holding on to this physical and, they don't want to get rid of their physical games and all this stuff. They're so worried about this digital future. I'm sorry to break it to them, but it is turning all digital. Eventually, I think this... It is.
I have to interrupt real quick. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, man.
Well, I saw the other day that there was a Twisted Metal long box in pretty much pristine condition, a little less. It's sold for $165,000. So what I do say to people is, if you're doing it to collect, like as a investment, get in before the door closes and there is no more physical, because it reminds me when we were kids and it was like, oh my God, can you believe someone had Superman Action Comics or whatever it was, #1, and they just threw it away. And it's like, God, I wonder if anything will be like that with me. And it's like, it's these fucking games, man. The nostalgia for games is insane.
Oh, definitely.
And it is such a powerful driver of people in their 20s and 30s that they start getting money and they want to reconnect with that. And so I highly advise physical if you're doing it as an investment, and do it now, because 5 years, other than like sort of boutique stuff like limited run games and stuff, you ain't going to be able to get them. So, but short of that, though, I'm with you. I mean, it is the future. And not only that, consoles are going away. Next month is the Xbox Bethesda showcase.
Yeah.
It's highly rumored that that's when we'll see. I think they're co-naming it Keystone, but you'll see the little $100 or sub $100 stick puck from Microsoft that literally just plugs into a TV, and you don't even need an Xbox. And they have a deal with Samsung, and it's just going to be built into the smart TV. So in 10 years, I mean, obviously not everyone can stream video games yet, but I can. A lot of people can, and it's great when it works, and it works 99% of the time. So in 10 years, we're going to look back at this and go, it's wonderful. It's kind of like going, it's right now it's the equivalent of going, I want to go see Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Well, I don't own access to that kind of movie theater projector. I can only see these movies. And it's like, what? It's like, no, it's like if you want to play Halo, play that on your TV, and then, oh, look, there's a new God of War. I'll subscribe to Sony for a month and play that. It's like the consoles are dead. They may not be dead now, but anyone who doesn't look at this as the future is living in denial.
Yeah, no, it's true. Digital gaming, we can talk about the convenience and stuff, and it's nice not having to get up and change discs and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, resume,
but what do you say? Quick resume, and that's the thing. When Xbox this generation was coming out with quick resume, and what was the other thing too? They had smart delivery and things like that. People were saying they were just like buzzwords, but they became very, very important, man, because it's, let's face it, with some PS4 to PS5 games, that smart delivery there for Xbox really works well, and there's not really a feature like that on PlayStation. And
no, and
it's kind of a cluster.
It's really, for me, I've never been a backwards compatible guy in the sense that I'm like, I don't have like an old collection of like, or a desire to play Jumping Flash that and if I ever do, I'll go into a browser emulator on the PC. I'll get my yayas out for 5 minutes and move on with my life. But there's this neat intersection of 3D games now have gotten good enough around the end of the PS2 era moving forward that good ones hold up now beyond just the novelty of nostalgia, right? And that mixed with Steam was the first time I experienced it, where you can go into Steam and it's like, hey, $10 and under sale, $5 and under sale. And I was buying stuff like Turok 64, which I had never played. And I bought Max Payne 3 that I had never played more than 10 minutes. And I bought Dead Space 2 that I had never played. And on Steam, there's no sense of backwards compatibility. There's no sense of, nostalgia. It's just another game.
It's just there, yeah.
It's there. And you're just like going, that was when I realized what Xbox is doing, which is ultimately what Steam started doing, is so fucking great as a gamer, because you no longer think in generations. You no longer think, you just think in game.
Yep.
It's like we found the Rosetta Stone, and suddenly it's just game. Everybody speaks the same language when you're playing like that. It's like, whereas, it's like, I'd like to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, please. Well, you have to have an Intellivision, and you have to have this version of the Intel. What? Kids today, one thing about it, my kids coming up, literally their experience with video games is so different in terms of how they consume and acquire them.
Yeah.
It's Fortnite, Among Us, Jackbox Party. It's like one guy buys the game. If you have to pay for it all up front, everybody else plays it on their phone. It's just they don't have that mentality of needing to own this shit. And I think it's there's some abuses, but there's abuses all over the place. Every type of sale tactic is going to be abused if you're a bad guy.
What do you have to say to people that will tell you, well, Jaffe, those digital games, especially on Game Pass or xCloud, you're just renting your games, Jaffe. You're just renting them. You don't own them. What do you say to those type of people?
Well, first off, I say, let your mother know last night's check will clear. I just have to get some more money in the bank.
Oh, man.
That's what I say. And then I say, I mean, I don't know what I say in the heat of the moment, but I can tell you that it's like that. The way they phrase it is like an insult.
Yeah,
like you don't own, and I'm like, that's literally that lands on me the same way somebody would say, Jaffe, you understand you live in this zip code, right? And not that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't have a desire to. Why do I want to own it?
When I hear that though, Jaffe, what immediately comes to mind for me is you're talking to somebody who's rented games at Blockbuster as a kid.
Oh, me as well. By the way, I have to say, when you get to the Iron Lords podcast super chat, I have to talk to them.
Oh, for sure. And just for me, though, it's like, hey, like, what's wrong with renting? I have no problem with renting a game, beating it, and returning it. I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, and we're dinosaurs. You think my kids don't go around thinking they own Fortnite?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's just dumb. But again, that's disrespectful. I mean, if you like to own,
that's fine.
I can respect that, and you, if there's enough of you out there, and I think there are, you will be served by companies that say we want to serve this market and make money off this market.
Yeah.
But I think you also have to be okay with the fact that you're becoming more and more like, music aficionados. Yeah, there are still record stores, and yeah, people are still making vinyls, and those come back and go away and come back and go away.
Yeah.
But those are fringe at this point. Those are margins at this point, and that's how it's going to be. But that doesn't mean what you like isn't great. But to act like everyone, it's like you're in the minority, not us. Most people, you think people care they don't own Stranger Things? No, they're just excited to watch the season on Netflix and move on with their fucking life.
Exactly. Soren Grant says, 50 minutes behind on the show, guys. Had to wait for the wife to go to bed. Both you need to turn on Super Thanks on YouTube. Love both of you guys. Thank you very much.
Mine is turned on YouTube, but no one's ever used it. But it's turned on.
I think I just turned mine on as well. But yeah, no, I just find it funny when these people come to me and say, you're just renting games. And I'm just like, yeah, so what? I like a good value. I think Game Pass is phenomenal value. Yep. For me and my son, the amount of games we've both played on this service. And yeah, a lot of people will look through my catalog and say, well, you started this game but didn't finish it. You started that game. Yeah, there are games that I try out and don't like, and I don't finish them.
Or I like them until I don't like them because I get bored because the loop gets boring and I move on with my fucking life. Fuck off.
And that's another thing. That's actually a positive check next to somebody who's renting rather than buying. I didn't buy all those games.
Mentally healthy versus someone who's not. It's like, oh my, when you get bored of something and you disengage, you choose not to waste any more of your very limited time on Earth doing something you don't enjoy. That sounds like a win to me.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like, you didn't fucking platinum it. Fuck off, you broken fuck. That's what I would say.
I don't achievement hunt, nor do I trophy hunt. I just don't do it.
I mean, I'm okay with that if you're into that. But
I'm not into it.
Yeah, I'm not either. But,
I like to play the game.
That's not my beef. My beef is more this assumption that these people have that there is a proper right way.
Oh, I hate that.
To experience something. And it's like, are you a fucking moron? Yeah. I think you're a fucking moron.
Yeah, I hate that. Enjoy the game the way you want to enjoy it. And so who cares what somebody says about it? It doesn't matter. Iron Lords Podcast, my good friends over there. Lord Cognito sends a 20 and says, salute to the Lord Fonzarelli Gaming.
Awesome to hear legend Lord Jaffe on Games Talk Live.
Yeah, I have to talk to these guys because
they're awesome.
They are awesome, but they've never had me on their show, and I think it's because I'm not black. I've seen white people. I've seen white people on there, but maybe they just don't like the Jews. I don't know what it is.
I've been on there myself a few times. Great people. You know what? He wants to have you on, and he even says that here. He says he really wants to have you on. So
he doesn't like the whites.
Right here.
That's okay.
Would be an honor to have him in the realm. So
he says that now.
See?
He says that now. I would love to go on their show. I love their show.
You see that, guys? Oh, they're great. Fantastic.
Yeah, they are.
Just a bunch of friends that like to hang out and just talk games. It's awesome. JD Gamer, thank you very much for the 20, says, Game Pass is awesome, and I hope it inspires Sony and Nintendo compete in a better way. Sent from the Iron Lords. I guess they send them over here. Hi, Fonz. Hi, Jaffe. Real quick, Game Pass, because I know we're going to be shutting down soon, guys. Real quick, Game Pass. Do you think that PlayStation Plus Premium, do you think they should or do you think they need to in the future eventually have to do day and date?
You don't mean Game Pass. You mean PS Plus.
PS right? Plus Premium, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's two questions there, right? There's the question of, do I want them to, and do I think it will help their business? And then there's the question of, will they ultimately have to?
Yes.
Right. So I think Sony, I think Sony is in a tough position because I imagine it's very hard to change horses in midstream when your horse is so far ahead of all the other horses. It's probably very non-intuitive to go, why would we change horses?
But they've been changing horses a lot recently.
Well, they have. They've been in terms of sort of what people associate their success with, which are $70 narrative.
Now they're on PC.
Right. Yeah. But I think ultimately, the industry is changing, and whether or not they're like, yeah, Jaffe, we're not morons, we know, but we think we can stay on top for 3 years and have a much slower transition. I mean, that stuff, none of us have access to that data. Yeah. But what I will say, though, is yes, I think ultimately so Microsoft is also in a tough position because they have the best roadmap to find the lost city of gold that there's ever been. But they have terrible management. And so in terms of managing their game companies. But if they can do what Phil is promising, which is a regular drop of these, not all AAA, but these important, meaningful games, first party, day and date from these studios that they've acquired and that they've built, I think if they can market that, I'm trying to take this thing off my screen, if they can market that, and so far they really haven't hammered it home, and maybe they're waiting for the big ones to drop if they will drop. But if just imagine walking into a GameStop or a Best Buy or going online, we talked about this on my show a couple of weeks ago, and seeing a Christmas ad that's like Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty, Halo. Let's assume they get their shit together. Halo, Starfield, like 5, 6, 7 big games. And let's say all those big games are also on PlayStation. And at the bottom, they have a cost for those games for Xbox, and it says 0. And there's a little asterisk by it, and it says, Game Pass, $14 a month or whatever. And then they add up the cost of all those games on PlayStation, which is like $560 just for the games. I don't think you can really, at that point, win. I think you'll win among aficionados who still want to play the great Sony games, and there's no reason to think that their narrative-based games will ever be lesser than the best. But I think from a consumer standpoint, ease of access, cost, and good enough always beat brilliant boutique shit that's overpriced. The Ferrari is always going to be the better car than the Camry. But the Camry is always going to be good enough for 99% of the population, and they'll be happy with their Camry. So I think Sony's going to have to eventually do it. The only reason that they wouldn't would be if Microsoft just can't get their shit together and people mistake the failure for the plan of the service versus them simply not being able to serve the service with frequent enough drops of meaningful games. So it is definitely the future for sure.
Yeah, I definitely see that Sony is keeping a close eye on Game Pass and what transpires. These companies, all of them, they just see dollar signs. They want to make money, and I get it.
Of course.
But at the same time, as a consumer, I look at it and I say, I look at the PlayStation Plus Premium, and I don't see value there for me.
I have no interest. I'll get it for a month to stream it for my show and go through all the old games, which I've probably already done on browser emulation anyway. But I'll do it to play with it. Yeah. But I've had PS Now since the beginning, and PS Now already has over 1,000 games on it. And a lot of them are, old games. And it's not like I'm like, do I want to play Elden Ring or Loot River tonight? Or do I want to go back and play, Shadow Man from PS2 era? It's a no-brainer. I just, so I don't know what they're going to drop on PS Premium that I've like, oh shit, I forgot about that game. It's like I've played them all.
I think initially they're going to have a lot of people like you that will join up and to see, what is this all about? And then eventually taper off. People will just drop. Because I don't really see the casual market looking at it and going, hey, that's a deal. I don't see it. So it is what it is. Cerebral Paul, thank you very much. He says, don't get me started.
Terrible name. It's a terrible name.
He says, don't get me started on the right way to play. Accessibility for the win. He does have cerebral palsy.
Well then you get,
it's a great
name. Pass, pal.
It's a great name. And you see his little icon there, his little avatar with the...
Oh, I thought it was like a rat think car.
Nah, it's his little... it kind of looks like one, but it's the wheelchair. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
We wanted to do a twisted metal rat think back in the day. Anyway, keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Gaming Addict with a 5 says, we always been interested in having Lord Jaffe in the realm. See? And you said that you thought that you're white. This is the white guy from the show here. So he says...
Okay, but they keep that guy in the back room, and they only
let him out every now and then. No, they don't. Come on now.
I would love to go on their show.
That's awesome. I like hearing that because I love those guys. Those guys are so good. They're my brothers, man. You got to be on their show. Brigadier's Blue again says, got to get going, but I love the show. Thanks for coming on, Jaffe. Always love hearing your takes on different topics. Keep up the amazing work, you two.
Cool.
Thank you very much, man. Last one here, JD Gamer says, Jaffe, I agree. Sony has lost every format war where they went it alone and forgot about convenience and cost, and I don't see that changing. Game Pass wins. So that's what he has to say. But anyways, I want to thank you very much. I don't
even Game Pass wins, though. That's where I
he had to send that.
Are they spending? Are they making money? Are they keeping people employed? Are they making their fan base happy? That's really all that matters. I mean, the idea that somebody's going to win. I mean, again, I get it at a business level. Sure, you always want to come out on top. But I do think it's like, there's a meme that goes around a lot where it's like, do you actually play games or do you just complain about games in the business? It's like, go fucking play some fucking games.
Wait a minute. I didn't finish Gaming Addict's little thing here. He says, Lord, they've always been interested in you. And it says, follow Lord Addict ILP and at Lord Cognito on Twitter. Let's make this happen. So yes, follow those two guys. Yeah, definitely follow them. You've seen their show. They're amazing. You have to be there. You have to be there. One question I did have for you before you go, though, is I have a friend, Ramon Terrell. He's an actor. He's trying to get into the business of voice acting and gaming. Is there any way out there that he, how is the easiest way to break into the business? You know anything about that, voice acting? And
well, okay. It's funny because I was going through Cameo the other night. Do that again with your cup. Do that again.
Oh, it's a green cup. Look at that.
That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
Ooh, yeah.
It's Doctor Strange. So,
multiverse.
I was watching some cameos because I was thinking of getting my ex-wife one for Mother's Day and all this, that, and the other. But I came across T.C. Carson, who did the voice of the original Kratos. Okay. And I was like, she doesn't know who that is, but I was like, oh, let me see what he's talking about. And people would write in, and he would do a cameo for people who wanted to get into the business of voice acting. And he said his advice, which is better than my advice would be, which is he says, take a class, and make sure it's a class that part of ending the class, you leave with a demo tape or a demo file or whatever, because then you will be able to actually send it to agents, send it to video game companies.
Gotcha.
And the other thing that's great about voice acting is, so many people in video games are easily accessible, that direct, that cast, that produce. So, go on Twitter and don't spam and be a prick, but it's like, hey, director of this video game or producer of this video game, or there's a bunch of God of War people that are online on Twitter. It's like, hey, would you be okay if I linked you to my, it's only 40 seconds. It's a reel. It's online. You don't have to download anything. You just click it. And if you like it, could you pass it on to somebody at the studio that, casts voice? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways to kind of be aggressive and ambitious without being annoying that you have now in that realm. So I would say that. And then I would say, honestly, seek out people who do the work. They're very accessible, and they'll give you better advice than I will. I've never explored that as a career, so I don't really know, other than what I just said, that TC said would be the option.
Well, David Jaffe, it was a pleasure having you on Games Talk Live. Thank you very much. And everybody in the chat, thank you for, being here today. And I'm sure you're all here from the man, the myth, the legend. Tell everybody where they can find you and what you
I want to tell you two things. So right after this show at 3:00, so 30 minutes, I will be live streaming. There's a podcast called The Leadist. So The Leadist podcast, and if you liked the 5 questions, it's basically a podcast that's games about video games, and we'll be doing Family Feud.
That's
I'll be live. Yeah, that comes out on Wednesday on their podcast, but I will be live streaming it while we record it today in about 30 minutes. But then, find me on Twitter at David Scott Jaffe. Just go to YouTube and type in David Jaffe or Gabbin' and Games. I stream my show 2 to 3 times a week, which is a 90 to 2 hour game show about news and a lot of interaction. And then I do tons of game streaming and specials. We're about to do Jaffe Mania coming up, which I have a bunch of video game developers, game executives, and game journalists that have been created as fighters in WWE 2K22. And I'm going to have them beat the fuck out of each other in Jaffe Mania. So, for example, we have like Gabe Newell from Valve taking on Hideo Kojima from Kojima Productions. We'll see who wins. It's going to be a lot of fun. So there's a lot of stuff going on over there at the channel. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys over there.
Yes. Follow David Jaffe on Twitter and YouTube. And until next time, guys, game on.